You didn't fall behind by accident. I know that sounds a little intense, but stay with me. You were placed there. And the uncomfortable part is, you've probably been working your whole life trying to escape it, without realizing that the way you've been moving is actually keeping you inside it. Pause. Because if that feels a bit off, or even wrong, then just think about this for a second. Why do people who do everything right still feel stuck? Like, look at your day. It's probably not that different from most people. You wake up around the same time every morning, maybe hit snooze once or twice, grab your phone before you're even fully awake, scroll a little. Then you rush, get ready, head out, maybe with that slight feeling of being behind already. You go to work, you do what's expected, you check the boxes, finish what needs to get done. Nothing crazy, just normal. Then the end of the month comes, money hits your account, and for a brief moment it feels okay. And then it disappears. Rent, bills, groceries, random stuff you didn't even plan for. Maybe a subscription you forgot about, and just like that, it's gone. Then the whole thing resets, again and again, week after week, year after year. Here's the weird part. Nothing about that feels dramatic. It's not like something is obviously broken. It's just steady, quiet, predictable. And somehow, that's what makes it dangerous, because everyone around you is living the same pattern. Same conversations, same "I'm tired" jokes, same quiet stress about money that nobody really wants to admit out loud. And over time, you just accept it. This is life. That's what people say, but pause. Think about that. You're working, you're earning, you're doing what you were told to do. So why does it still feel like you're slightly behind all the time? Not failing, just not moving forward either. Most people feel that, by the way. They just don't stop long enough to question it. At some point growing up, you were told something that sounded simple and right. Work hard and you'll be fine. And honestly, at first, that makes sense. It feels fair. It feels like something you can control. But this is where things get interesting. Because if you actually look around, working hard has never been more common, and yet stress about money has also never been more common. People are more educated now, more connected, more informed than ever before. And still, there's this constant pressure sitting in the background. Pause. So either people suddenly forgot how to live properly, or maybe that belief was never the full picture. Think about it for a second. If hard work alone was enough, then the hardest working people would be the most secure, right? But that's not what we see. You've got people working long hours, barely taking breaks, still worried about basic things like rent or unexpected expenses. And at the same time, there are people who don't seem to be working nearly as hard, at least not in the traditional sense, and somehow they're moving ahead faster. That gap, it's not random, it's not leaking the way people think. There's something else going on underneath it, and I know this might sound uncomfortable, but it's not chaos, it's not just life being unfair. It's actually structured, designed, even. Not in some dramatic conspiracy way, just quietly built this way over time. You weren't dropped into a broken system. You were placed into one that works, just not necessarily in your favour. Pause. And once you start noticing it, it's hard to go back to not seeing it. The easiest way to understand it is to think of it like levels in a game. Not layers, because layers sound like something you can see all at once. This isn't like that. You experience it step by step, and each level feels completely normal while you're inside it. You don't question it, because it's all you've known. The first level is school. You spend years there, right? Being told what to study, when to sit, when to speak. You follow instructions, you get rewarded for getting the right answers. But here's something people don't really talk about. You're almost never rewarded for asking better questions. Think about that. You learn how to memorize, how to pass tests, how to meet expectations, but not really how money works, or how systems work, or how to think independently about your own life. And it doesn't feel strange at the time, because everyone around you is doing the exact same thing. You didn't choose it, you just entered it. Then comes the next level, salary life. You graduate, you get a job, and honestly, there's a sense of relief. Like, okay, things are finally starting. You've got stability now, some direction, money starts coming in, and that feels good. But here's the part that's easy to miss. Your income becomes fixed, your time becomes tied to that income, and your growth becomes predictable. Raises happen, sure, but they're usually small. Meanwhile, everything else, rent, food, just living in general, keeps getting more expensive without asking you first. And slowly, almost without noticing, your lifestyle adjusts to whatever you're earning, not the other way around. Pause. It feels like progress, but if you look closely, you're mostly maintaining your position. Again, you didn't really choose this, you stepped into it, then comes debt. And this one's tricky, because it doesn't feel like a trap at first, it feels like help. Credit cards, loans, buy now, pay later. It gives you access to things you couldn't afford up front, and for a moment it feels like you're getting ahead. But at the same time, you're pulling money from your future into your present, which means part of your future income is already spoken for before it even arrives. Pause. Now combine that with a fixed salary and suddenly you've got less flexibility than you thought. So what do? You keep working. Not necessarily to move forward, but just to keep everything from falling apart. You didn't sit down and choose this trap. You just walked into it. And then there's the distraction loop. This one's subtle. After a long day, you're tired. Not just physically, but mentally. You don't want to think too much. So you scroll, watch something, maybe say, just one video. And suddenly it's been an hour, or two. It feels harmless, honestly, even deserved. But over time it becomes the default. Instead of thinking about your situation, you escape it for a bit. And the more you do that, the less space you give yourself to actually question anything. Pause. It's not forcing you to stay stuck. It's just making sure you don't notice that you are. And then you hit the last level. The one that really holds everything in place. Fear. This one's internal. Nobody has to enforce it. At some point, you start feeling like something isn't quite right. You can't always explain it, but you feel the repetition, the limits. And maybe you think, there has to be more than this. But right after that thought comes another one. What if I mess it up? What if I lose what little stability I have? What if I try something different and it goes wrong? So you stay, not because you love it, but because leaving feels uncertain. And at that point, the system doesn't need to hold you anymore. You're holding yourself. Pause. And again, you didn't consciously choose that. You just ended up there. Here's the part that's honestly a little unsettling. None of these levels feel like traps when you're inside them. They feel normal, expected, like this is just how life works. There's no warning sign, no moment where someone pulls you aside and says, hey, just so you know, this path keeps you average. It just happens slowly over time. And then one day, maybe it hits you. You look around and think, wait, I've been doing all of this, putting in all this effort, and I'm still in the same place. Let me put it in a simple way. Imagine two people who start in almost the same situation, same education, same kind of job, same opportunities. The first person just follows the path exactly as it's laid out, works hard, earns money, takes on some debt, upgrades their lifestyle a bit, uses their free time to unwind, avoids anything that feels risky. Years go by. Their income goes up a little, but so do their expenses. Stress doesn't really go away. They're doing okay, but they're not free, just stable. The second person isn't some genius or risk taker. They just start noticing things. They ask small questions. Why does my income feel capped? Why am I paying so much in interest? Where is my time actually going every day? And those questions slowly change how they act. They don't make some massive leap overnight. They just adjust, cut down certain expenses, avoid unnecessary debt, use their time a bit more intentionally. Over time, those small shifts start to compound. Same starting point, very different direction. Pause. It's not about being smarter. It's about seeing what's actually happening. Let's make this really real for a second. Say you make $4,000 a month. That sounds solid. But then you subtract rent, maybe $1,500, bills, $400, food, $600, transport, $300, random extras, $200, debt payments, $700. You're left with $300. That's it. That's your margin, your breathing room. One unexpected expense, a medical bill, a car issue, anything, and that $300 disappears instantly. Now just think honestly. How do you build any kind of freedom from that? You don't. Not really. So the cycle continues. Not because you're doing something wrong, but because there isn't enough space to do anything differently. Pause. This is what most people feel, but they never sit down and actually see it clearly. Remember that earlier feeling, like something didn't quite add up? This is what it was. You weren't just managing money, you were moving through a structure that quietly limits your options at each step. And because it happens gradually, you don't notice it building until it's already there. So no, the problem isn't that you're not working hard enough. You've been working hard this whole time. The real issue is the level you're playing at. Each level has its own rules. And if you stay inside one, your results stay inside it too. You can't solve a higher level problem with the same thinking that created it. And you definitely can't step outside a system you don't even realize you're in. Pause. This isn't about motivation. It's not about pushing yourself harder or suddenly changing everything overnight. It's simpler than that, and honestly, a bit more uncomfortable. It starts with awareness. Just seeing things as they are, understanding where you are right now, and realizing that there are other ways to move, even if they feel unfamiliar or slow or different from what everyone else is doing. Because once you see it, you can't really go back to playing blindly. You start noticing your decisions, you start choosing more carefully. And that shift, even though it's small at first, changes everything over time. Not instantly, but permanently. You were never actually stuck. You were just playing a game you didn't know the rules of.